Ask permission from the monastic lay community to say a few words on Dhamma. It's the 6th of April, 2019. So with Paul leaving this morning, that was the last of our retreat crew, other than Josh, Theo, Brett is staying on, obviously. So there's a feeling like we're very much in the swing of things. There's activities happening. There's monks on Tudong, Tan Kogilo, Tan Suhajo. Did anybody see them coming up here? Have they been spotted? Nobody's spotted them. North of Santa Rosa. Hope they're okay. Safe to assume they're probably not walking on the 4-lane highway. It's not so safe. So there's these two periods. There's winter retreat, and then there's everything else outside of winter retreat. And they complement each other really well. And a lot of what we learn in the monastery is outside of the retreat time in terms of the kawat, the etiquette, the monastery standards. In the summertime, we study the Vinaya, and the winter retreat very much being the focus on meditation and deepening our understanding of the Dhamma teachings. And the mind is just the mind, so we just keep going, whether we're in retreat or not. And we just keep going and trying to train the mind and lessen the greed, hatred, delusion, the mula kilesa, the root defilements. Try to see if we can use our study and practice to make them become less somehow. And it's going to be different for everybody. And I was just reflecting on the past week or so coming out of retreat, just reflecting on the way we get affected by the training and what happens when we call into question and go against the defilements. Because before we pick up the Dhamma practice, then we're just always rolling with them, or getting buffeted around by them, and we don't see them. But then when we start calling them into question and we start trying to become free of them, there's different things that happen. And because our body and mind is so enmeshed and intertwined with the defilements, and we were born because of the defilements, we're here because of them, thanks to them, that if we go against them or try to weaken them, at least at first anyway, it's almost like our body and mind become weaker along with them. But then later on, when we start to understand them more and how they work, how they function, and how the restraint works, and how the restraint and the wisdom, the mindfulness functions, then a new type of strength comes out of that, and like a purity rises up out of that, a purity which is more free of the defilements. And then we gain a new type of strength. But it's almost like at first we have to fail and become weak and flaccid, and we get I guess you could say we get beat up by the defilements. It's like at first it's like we don't really realize how strong they are at first. And so we might have these ideas like, okay, if I'm going to just practice really, really hard and get enlightened, even though we don't really know what enlightenment is, or we might have a vague idea of what it might be. But I'm going to practice really, really hard and overcome the defilements and gain victory over them, greed, hatred, and delusion, and then that's it. I'll just put forth a lot of effort over a very short period of time, and then after that, then I'll be enlightened, and then things will be easy for the rest of my life, and I won't have to think about it. So, but in reality, what happens is it's like putting a 9-year-old boy in a boxing ring with Mike Tyson and expecting him to win. And it's just, he's just gonna, he's not even gonna have to try. But if that 9-year-old boy then decides, I'm gonna beat him eventually, and he trains really hard, and over the years trains, practices, perhaps fails over and over, but gets stronger little by little over time, and then eventually then he can go into the ring with the defilements. And it's still not going to be easy, but when we take up the practice and we get throttled by the defilements in the beginning, and then we start to see, okay, well, maybe this and that skill in my mind is what I need. And the Buddha's here to help us too. The Buddha's like our trainer. So the Buddha's here to say, okay, well, you need mindfulness, you need discernment, you need mental stability, mental unification, you need sila, you need all these things in order to build up your strength and then learn how to deal with the mental obscurations, the defilements. I remember Dave, one of our retreat crew members, one of our midnight teas, we were having a discussion about the nature of defilement. And of course, we're in the Thai forest tradition, and there is a lot of the Kruba Ajahns will talk in martial terms, and the Buddha used militaristic, martial terminology as well when he talked about the practice of being from a warrior caste. And so he would say things like you have to gain victory over the enemy, gain victory over the defilements, or that you willingly enter the struggle, enter the battle. And so, but this taken the wrong way, I remember Dave asking, well, aren't you supposed to, be developing compassion? And, compassion for the defilements, because you don't want to be getting, angry, upset. Don't these defilements need our compassion as well? And I there was a point when I thought like that, and I would read, say, these really strong teachings of Ajahn Mahabua, where he would say things like, the only function of the defilements is to stomp all over your heart. And think, oh, that's really strong. That's really kind of callous. But as time went on, it's kind of like, yeah, that is all they do. And they're they're not compassionate towards me. And so, we had this kind of discussion going back and forth about the nature of defilement, and when Dave was asking, are we supposed to be compassionate towards them? But then thinking, well, being compassionate towards the defilements, it doesn't preclude the fact that we're going to destroy them. So that's the most compassionate thing we can do for ourselves. So I guess one of the themes I keep coming back to is the theme of failure. And Mary was asking about this earlier at tea time, and about, say, past failures, past regrets. And this is a really, really important theme in the practice, how to deal with failure. And for me, at this point, I'm sure that to try and to make an attempt and to fail is far better than not trying. And so anything we take on, say, in the course of our Dhamma practice, any type of work or any type of practice that we take on, there's inevitably going to be mistakes, failures, and that's exactly how we learn. If we have a culture where there's a stigma against failure, then rather than learning, we're going to be inclined to either not admit our failures, hide our failures, not want to see our failures, and we're not going to be able to learn if we don't see the failures. So being okay with the fact that we're going to make mistakes, the fact that we're going to fail sometimes, and then being able to pick ourselves up and learn from that. And it may be something that's not such a big deal in terms of we make a wrong decision or do some sort of work, take on some sort of project, and then it just ends up not working out. We might spend 100 hours doing something and then it ends up not working. It ends up not accomplishing what we wanted it to accomplish. So those are like small failures, and we can still learn from those. We can learn, investigate, why didn't it work, and move on from there. And through learning how to mentally deal with all these small failures, we learn how to deal with things like the worldly winds, like criticism, loss, times when we may not have a good reputation, pain, and we learn how to deal with those kind of things. And as we build up our sense of the practice, then eventually we'll learn how to deal with the big disappointments in life. The divorce, the loss, the children not growing up the way we want them to grow up, the betrayals, and those are the big things in life. And then the biggest thing in life, death. And something Mary was saying is, as a nurse, death is seen as a failure. So maybe that's a failure we can learn from, is that all these things all in the practice are all preparing us for the time of death. It's like His Holiness the Dalai Lama saying, being asked, why does he practice? And he just said, well, just to prepare for death. So seeing where our attachments are, where our clinging is. A lot of the time, we might kind of wonder why we haven't had a deep insight into the Dhamma, and so we might think, okay, I need to be more austere, or I need to try this, I need to try that. I need to get the jhanas, that's why I haven't had this insight yet. I need to meditate more hours per day. Or I need to eat less, or whatever. It's pretty subtle. The Buddha talks about these different reasons why we don't see Dhamma. And one of the things I'd like to bring up or address just for contemplation is, well, a couple things. One is, we call it ditthimana, which is, or we can also think of it as dit upadana, clinging to views, clinging to viewpoints, clinging to opinions. Ditthimana is like a views, but there's also conceit and identification with our views, a conceit or an investment in our views, and then also this word agati, which is bias. Bias is something that starts to fall away at the time of stream entry. Agati, there's the 4 biases that the Buddha talked about, the chandagati, dosagati, mohagati, bhayagati. That's the biased by wishing or wishful thinking, biased by irritation, aversion, biased by confusion, delusion, biased by fear. So this like ditthimana goes along with the agati, the biases. And those are things which we cling to based on a sense of self, a sense of conceit. That's really keeping us from seeing clearly, seeing in the way of Dhamma, the way of insight. Or if we see with a bias, or we see based on a view that's built up through identification, through an investment in an identification, then it's not yet Dhamma. It's not seeing clearly. So seeing that's free from ditthimana, seeing that's free from bias, that's more what's going to be in line with Dhamma. So if meditating more helps us to let go of our biases, if eating less helps us to let go of our biases, if meditating more hours per day helps us to let go of our biases, if being more austere helps us to let go of our biases, then it's going to be helpful. Because that's really what we have to focus on. It's just, we just see things just a little bit, the angle's just a little bit wrong. Just slightly off. Or like Longpo Pasano had this beautiful teaching one time where it's like, it's not that we're held to our identification and our sense of self, our sense of conceit and our views. It's not like we're really firmly yoked by thick straps to them. It's more like we're attached to them by beautiful, thin, golden strings that we just can't bear to cut. I really like that. So something to consider. That's how we get tripped up. That's how those things actually block us, obstruct insight. And that's really what we're here for, is for insight. But because our body and mind is so enmeshed with the defilements, and it's not even a judgment. We were born because of the defilements. It's not a judgment that we have defilements. Every being has kilesa, has the defilements. If you're born into samsara, that's what it is. So it's not a judgment, like judging ourselves for not being arhants. But it's just seeing that these are the things that are obstructing us from the Dhamma. So that's what we need to address. That's what we need to look at. And whether we're in retreat or outside of retreat, both of these times can be incredibly useful, and then they reinforce each other. Outside of retreat, we learn, we do these different activities, going tudong, doing the communal work, and so on. Still doing our morning and evening puja and our sitting and walking meditation, the formal practice. But then there's more activity, more coming and going. It was kind of fun today, actually. Our new truck, we've got this beautiful new truck, got stuck this morning in the mud and at a really remote part of the monastery. And it's got these really slick kind of street tires on it, so it had a hard time even going into four-wheel drive. Couldn't get it out of this mud pit that we got it stuck in. So having to go up after the meal and try to get it unstuck. And we still have our old truck. We're planning on selling it, but we still have our old truck. So we had to take the old truck up to get the new truck unstuck. And the old truck it's been with us for 20 years. It's been through a lot. It's kind of like this old, like a grizzled old fighter. And had this sense of like the new truck's kind of like, help, help. And it's kind of stuck in the mud, and the old truck kind of like, okay, you're new here, aren't you? And hooking the old truck up to the new truck, and sure enough, the old truck was able to pull the new truck out of the mud pit with a chain. And it's kind of like, I was kind of had this almost like a cartoon in my mind, thinking like of the old truck talking to the new truck. Like, okay, I gotta, kids, gotta deal with this. So, and then kind of really felt like, okay, now we're out of retreat. We're kind of getting stuck in the mud. We're dealing with these defilements, and but it's good. It's good. We're learning. So I don't have much to say this evening, but just to wish everyone well as we enter into the year, and hope that everyone learns how to gain some perspective around the Dhamma practice and around how to work with the defilements. And I'll just leave it there for this evening. And we can close with the sharing of verses of sharing and aspiration, page 33.